We are taught from such a young age that there is right and there is wrong and there is good and there is bad. But when you get into entrepreneurship, there's no right way to grow a company.
We've been in the 3 biggest coaching programs in the world. What have you noticed about most of them?
They all take an unreasonable amount of action.
And when you are around someone that has high standards, you fucking know about it.
I felt like I had potential, but I didn't know how to tap into it. And you asked me a really simple question: why don't you just start a business? And I felt fear just wash over my body.
Welcome to the podcast. Today we're talking about the real reason why your business won't grow. I want to give you guys a little bit of a teaser today. I used to work in America, and when I was squatting, my boss would come up to me and he would punch me in the stomach as hard as he could from behind. So think about that. He'd wrap around his arm like some cyborg, and then he'd yell in my ear, "Get tighter, motherfucker." And I swear this is going to make sense, and I'm going to relate this to business as we go. But Steph, how are you feeling?
Feeling pumped. I love this episode. I'm excited to talk about the real reasons why people's businesses don't grow. And I think that I love talking about this so much because I'm so desperate for everybody's business to actually grow. We were actually having this conversation this morning and talking about the fact that it's so difficult to watch people self-sabotage and not take the required actions that you give them or get in their own way when you believe in them so much. It's so heartbreaking when you desperately want to see someone win, but they just keep not doing the things that would actually allow them to get there. And so we want to talk to you guys today about what not to do and how to start actually growing a business.
Let's kick off with me dum-dumming business for you, and I'm just going to make it seem really simple.
You're going to mansplain this?
We're going to mansplain it, and then we're going to go into all the reasons why it doesn't work. So hypothetically, we make noise on the internet or in person, and people would reach out and they would opt into something and they would want to work with you. Then you need to sell said people that are interested from the noise you make. Then from there you need to deliver and do a good job. And then from there ask for referrals. And then on the back end of this, you need to build a well-oiled machine from an admin perspective or an operations perspective, so it all doesn't blow up and you don't mess up the client delivery. That's basically business in a nutshell, especially in the businesses that we run. I say that it is so simple, but why do you think so many people fuck that up? If everyone knows the mechanics of it, why doesn't it work like that?
Because we're human. You know, we fuck up lots of things that are good in our life because we have this conditioning that we are given by either society or our parents, and that makes us behave in ways that sometimes pull us further away from what we actually want. And it makes us behave like we say what we want and then we act the opposite because maybe we believe that we can't have it, or because maybe we believe that we'll be disowned from our family, or because maybe we believe that it will make us a bad person. And so we can want something and also do all of the actions that are directly opposite it because of just the things that we believe in our heads. And it's crazy to me that it's our beliefs, it's just our belief systems, that's it, that stop us from taking those 4 very simple business actions. Like, it's just 4 things.
Let me give you guys a work example from our business currently. So we make a lot of noise on the internet. That's why you're listening to this podcast right now. We do webinars, we book people in for calls, we get a tremendous amount of calls, but we have some kind of sales issue on the other side of this. And what do you do when you have a sales issue? You work out the problem, which is usually a person. You replace that person with someone better, but we haven't done that because there's a human element to it. So we feel bad for people, you know, give them another chance, give them another week. Maybe it's a scripting issue. We tell ourselves all these stories about what it could be. And in reality, we really know what the problem is. And if we were completely logical about the business, and anyone listening to this podcast right now, you know exactly what's wrong with your business, but something is stopping you from taking that next step, whether that's fear, that's a belief, or whatever it is. So we've got a bunch of things we're going to run through today. We've actually got 3 specific areas. We're going to tell this through a bunch of stories. So we're going to start with mindset, which for me is the most important aspect to running a successful business outside of the 4 areas that I gave you before. If you have a poor mindset, you're not going to have a great business, full stop. If you have a great mindset, you're going to have a very successful business. But how you get there is a bit different for every single person, and we're going to elaborate on that now.
So Tim, when I first met you, you just, without a shadow of a doubt, believed that you were destined to do something big, that you were going to be Australia's top strength coach, have Australia's best gym facility. Now we're on to Australia's best business podcast. And so there's always in you this incredible amount of belief in both your ability, your skill, your intelligence, and your aptitude to actually get the result. I've rarely seen you doubt yourself. Where does that belief come from? Like, because most people are the opposite. Most people don't believe. Most people doubt. Most people, what if I'm not good enough? What if I can't? What if I fail? You don't live in that element. In fact, most of the time you're like, Steph, oh my gosh, if this blows up, Steph, oh my gosh, when I get these ads right, it's going to be, you live in the optimist rather than the pessimist. How do you get like that?
Yeah, so I had a really blessed childhood. I was pretty good at most sports, which, our content lead Josiah hates. And I tell him this, and I've told him this a long time, don't verse me at paddle because I'll fuck you up, because I'm just like kind of good at some sports. And my dad always had this amazing faith in me. And what would happen, I played soccer at a decent level throughout my upbringing. And after the game, every game, I'd go have Hungry Jacks with my dad. And he would say things like, you were amazing out there. You were the best person on the field. You were the best person on the team. And enough weeks and years and months go by that you start to believe that you're the best person on the team and you're amazing. And then what happens when you truly believe, whether it's in business or soccer or whatever it is, that you are the best, you start performing like you're the best person there is. So I started winning man of the match. I was the captain. I was scoring all the goals. I was doing amazing things because my dad kept telling me every single weekend. He became delusional in my own belief in me that I was the best at these things, which is amazing. I obviously wasn't the best because I didn't make it. I'm not a professional soccer player right now. But the belief that my dad had in me, and he would tell me this stuff all the time, was amazing. And when things weren't going right in the team, there was always someone else's fault. And it was never my fault because I was the best. And I honestly, that is like programmed into my head right now that like, you are the best, you can do anything, because my dad had such faith in me that I could do that, which was amazing.
How does it feel to know that your dad gave you that? Because so many people clearly didn't have that growing up, or even if they did, maybe still didn't adopt it. It's kind of like a bit of a superpower. Like, how does that feel? We're going into a season where you're going to be a parent. How will that change the way that you parent? How does it feel knowing that your dad gave that to you? Like, is there gratitude? Like, how?
Yeah, super grateful for my parents. Super grateful for the upbringing that we had. I think, just the first person I can think of is you. Like, you had a bit of a different upbringing than me, especially athletically. And your parents would let you know that maybe you weren't the best athlete, which is quite like demeaning and not that great. But I think in contrast to that, it's amazing. And I just want to touch on like one other story here before we get into it. I grew up in a German family and I couldn't speak English really until I was 6. And going through school, I had the quite opposite experience than my dad telling me I was amazing at sports. I had teachers that would tell me I was dumb. And I had teachers tell me you'd be nothing more than a dumb tradie. Shout out to the tradies in the AI age. You guys are absolutely printing money and everyone else is struggling. So you guys are like, who's laughing now? But anyway, I was told this repeatedly and I kept failing subjects. I kept failing in school. And I don't know if it was my dad or my mom or someone was like, one day you'll show them. One day you'll show them. And that stuck with me ever since. And now when people doubt me, it's happened through my entire career. When I was a personal trainer, I was the worst personal trainer in the gym apparently. And I said, one day you'll show them. And then I just took it on myself to become as good as possible. And that's where my drive and work ethic comes from. It's one of these like away from motivations where I'm constantly trying to prove to myself that I am good at a certain thing. Therefore I go into it, I get belief, I get confidence, I get results, and it's a self-fulfilling cycle of success, and which I've done in multiple industries now. Which really, all of this just comes back to having a positive mindset from when you're younger, when you're a kid. Did you have any stories like that? Where did that come from? Your success comes from maybe different places, not as fucked up as mine?
Your success is beautiful. Growing up, look, I was such a daddy's girl. And growing up, my daddy always told me that I was amazing, incredible, beautiful, deserved the world. He really, really loved me. But unfortunately, my parents also have quite a, British sense of humor. And so I grew up a little overweight. Both my parents were overweight. I grew up a little overweight. And as I got into sports, I wasn't naturally gifted at sports. And so my parents would tease me about that, and they would laugh, and we would laugh at my expense at how bad I was at sports. And
But secretly you were cut.
of course, like, you know, I just decided that sports weren't for me. I just decided that math wasn't for me. I just decided that anything I wasn't good at naturally should not be something that I put my attention to.
Yeah.
Which, of course, growing up, that creates a really negative experience to, if I'm not naturally good at something straight away, then I give up on it almost immediately, which is like super unhelpful going into entrepreneurship. So I grew up with these parents that adored me, just to be very clear. Like I was truly loved.
Yeah, they're intense.
And super spoiled. But this British humour of kind of not good enoughness, and my dad was a bit of a strict guy. You know, my grades were never good enough. Nothing I ever did was really quite good enough. And so I really carried that, obviously, through to being an adult. My dad went bankrupt when I was 7. And because of that, he and my mum both said, you need to grow up, you need to go to school, you need to get a good job, you need to go to university, and this is the path for you. This is the safe path. This is the path that will lead you to not being in pain like we have been. So I didn't question anything. I just went to school and did the things and totally forgot that we went bankrupt. Like it wasn't a part of my story. And then I met you. And you woke up every day with this love for this thing that you did. And I did not wake up every day with love for what I did. And I was already hating my job. I was already unhappy with the system that I was stuck in. I felt like I had potential, but I didn't know how to tap into it. And you asked me a really simple question. Why don't you just start a business? And I felt fear just wash over my body. Like, I couldn't do that. That's what smart people do. That's what rich people do. That's what successful people do. I could never do that. And I was working at Aldi at the time, the supermarket store. And you just kept believing in me. And I was so lucky to have your belief and your constant guidance. And every time I fell down, you were there going, well, basically, welcome to business. But saying like, you get up and you go again, and you get up and you go again, and you don't have the skill, that's okay, we can learn it. And you would just be there guiding me constantly to develop this skill or the skills of entrepreneurship to a point now where I have a ton of skills and a ton of success. And the person who believed in me was you. And I thank your dad so much because...
Thanks, Daddy.
Thanks, Peter, because he gave you something that you gave me, and that now I think that...
You give other people.
I give other people, and that's really magical. That's a really beautiful thing that the Frey family has passed down.
Yeah. So seeing or hearing about my childhood and then having your childhood, a lot of people listen to this podcast and, you know, maybe they would hope that their son or daughter would go on and start a business and be successful. What are some characteristics that you think, you know, parents should pass down, or some traits or some things that you've seen on both of our childhoods that have really helped me and you as entrepreneurs?
I think there's two things that stand out immediately. One is deep belief in your children and their abilities. And especially with, like, you know, like your dad, like you were saying with your dad, I think that is unbelievable and so profound and so required. And the second thing I think is standards. Yeah. I think that, you know, my dad's, you know, never settled for a 70% scorecard or report card. And I would say to him, oh, but everyone in the class, it was a hard test. And he was like, well, I don't care about everyone in the class. I only care about you. And he pushed me to always want to be better. I think you naturally always push to want to be better, but I think if you want to raise successful children, you need to, one, keep believing in them, two, put them in the way of tons of adversity. Like, business is so challenging and you're going to fail 100 times. So you need to keep putting your kids in positions where they constantly fail so that they learn the ability to overcome those failures early on, so that failure in business becomes nothing but a part of what they've always experienced. And standards to, you know, keep pushing them to be better than they expect of themselves. Yeah. Or they might settle for the average of the people around them.
So we're going to go into a bit of mindset here. So 97% of your thoughts, actions, beliefs, what happens to you in your life has basically been programmed in from the ages, I think it's like 7 to 14 or something. I think they call it like...
It's like 6, I think it's like 4 to 7, yeah.
From the ages of like 4 to 7. So you're basically a big sponge when you're a kid of all those things, which is fantastic. So if you had a great positive childhood of like belief and, mindset and, this can be purposeful or unpurposeful, it's really going to shape who you are as a person today. And I think this is where a lot of business owners don't really want to understand that, or maybe they don't believe it, or maybe there's a bunch of stuff where they just think they are and they can't change that. But as we're talking about this right now, it is extremely important that you understand that your mindset is a direct result of the things that have happened to you in your past and what you have done, and you can change it. I want to give you guys a story. So we've had over 1,000 clients in the last 4 years in Success School. Some very successful and some not so successful. I'm not going to sugarcoat that for you guys on this podcast. I'm just going to tell you the truth. The ones that typically are unsuccessful have an extremely poor mindset. And what I mean by that, if something happens to them in their life or their business, or they go off the rails or something happens, they completely lose their shit, like to a point where they're basically shutting down their business. But the ones that are successful, bad shit happens to every single person in this world, guys. You really got to come to terms with that. Like, bad stuff's going to happen. You're going to get sick. People are going to die. You're going to hurt yourself. Like, something might happen with your partner or your kids or whatever it is. That's a part of life. But you got to keep your emotional shit regulated if you want to have a successful business. And you really have to have a good understanding of your mindset and what is happening to be successful. Those that are most successful have the most control and most understanding of their mindset. What do you think about that? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah, like I used to be I still am an incredibly emotional person.
Yeah.
But I used to be
unhinged.
Psycho.
Yeah.
And that was because my parents never taught me how to regulate. And my parents are both highly emotional, volatile people. And so growing up, if I was upset about something, I would get angry. I would yell. I would slam doors. If I was happy about something, I'd be jumping up and down. I'd be screaming. I'd be excited. And when you look at like a bell curve of like emotional regulation, mine was just like up and down like a bloody
like having a heart attack.
Yeah, it was like having a heart attack. Like the ERG monitor was like, this bitch is crazy. I had no emotional regulation. I felt everything. And that's at some stages in life really beautiful. Okay, like when you have really beautiful, happy moments and you really allow yourself to feel them, that's fucking awesome. But it was actually creating a lot of pain in my life. It was creating so much pain in my life because one minute I was thrilled and the next minute I'd be kicking and screaming, and the next minute I'd be so in love with you, and the next minute I'd be like, I think I'm going to leave and walk out. It was just really crazy, not only for me, but for every single person that I interacted with. Obviously, if you're like that and you're in business, one minute business is amazing and the next minute you're going to shut it down, and then you got a new offer, and then, and we see that play out in people's businesses. You will see that play out on people online. And your ability to regulate, and so like, just to be really clear, I have done so much mindset work. Like, you've done a lot, but you weren't as fucked up as me, to be fair.
Yeah.
And so I've done more. I've done a lot more. I've had to do a lot more. And one key indication for me that I need to do mindset work, or that I need to book in with a mindset coach, or that it's time for me to book a hypnotherapy session, is if I'm feeling extremely emotional for an extended period of time. So like, if shit happens, guys, like I tend to freak out about stuff like about, people not liking me. That seems to be my pattern. So if I find out that like, whatever, a client isn't going to stay in the program because, they're unhappy about something that I said or whatever, like I could fizz about that and spiral about that for 3 or 4 days. Now, if I'm still spiraling about that in 2 days, that tells me that that's an unhelpful pattern that needs to be worked on. If I'm spiraling about that for a week and I'm still talking about that a week later, I have wasted an entire week that I could have been growing my company, worrying about the opinion of someone that I can't control, that's outside of my ability to control. And so for me personally, that's how I know that mindset work is required. If you're someone that's listening to this podcast and you find yourself spiraling for days on something, there's a wound there. There's something there that needs to be healed. And if you don't heal that wound, it will keep presenting itself in lots of different ways, and it will keep sucking your time and energy toward that thing repeatedly until you work on it.
So my mindset journey has been a little bit different to Steph's. I had a great upbringing. My dad had a lot of belief in me. I was very self-confident. Things were going well. But I didn't really understand mindset. I didn't understand the subconscious mind. I didn't understand the conscious mind. I knew there was a lot to it. I knew there was something I was missing. And I knew that if I understood mindset and I understood people and I understood their psychology, I could be more successful. I could make more money. I could have a better life for our family. So I was like, maybe I should start studying this. So I found a guy named Paul Alicio, absolute legend, friends of ours. And Paul and Juliet, by the way, from Evolve and Relaunch. And he runs this thing called an NLP practitioner, which is basically like a mindset guru type situation. I call that. He's probably like, dude, why are you saying mindset guru? But anyway,
for this, yeah.
You learn a lot about mindset and psychology, and you learn to understand other people. I think when you go out there in the world, especially in business, and people behave or act a certain way, you're like, man, these people are fucking crazy. But at least if you have an understanding of people, you understand why they are that way, which helps you, like, you know, come to terms with what they're actually saying. So anyway, I did this mindset course and I was like, holy shit, I know nothing about people. I know nothing about mindset. I know nothing about psychology. And then all of a sudden this like world just opens up to you of like, man, there is so much here from a psychological perspective in business that I just didn't even know what motivates people, what pisses people off, what keeps them awake at night, what their patterns are, what their beliefs are, what their thoughts are, what the recognition is. I did this course and I was like, damn, I'm going to be so much better of an entrepreneur for the fact that I can train my team, I can be a leader, I can understand emotions, I can understand what people are feeling. And honestly, just having a grasp of NLP or mindset coaching is one of the best investments I've ever made. I'm a bit of a course whore, so I went on, flew to Adelaide, did the master practitioner level, and then got a coach. So I had this conscious understanding of what mindset was, but then it comes time to actually do the work, which is extremely uncomfortable. When you're doing any type of mindset work, it's basically like you've got an onion and you're just peeling back the layers over and over. And every layer that you peel back, there's just more uncomfortable things that come up. You learn more about yourself. You learn your triggers. You learn your beliefs. You learn what makes you tick. You learn what pisses you off. You learn what you love. And you just realize that you've been put together from all this fucked up shit that's happened to you in your life, whether you agreed or wanted to or not. You've been put together by all the things that have happened to you in your life. And if you've got some really unhelpful actions or things that you do every day, it's because there's something that's happened to you in your life. And where I'm going with this is the fact that I have understanding of this has made me a better entrepreneur. And the reason I'm telling you this on a podcast is you have to have understanding of your own mindset and other people's if you want to create massive success. We know that a lot of people with raw dog business, we know people that are completely unaware. And what I mean by that is they have no conscious understanding of mindset or psychology or whatever it is. They completely raw dog business and they operate out of like ego, which is fantastic. But it just helps so much handle team and just be a good leader when you have an understanding of mindset.
From NLP, I have a few, but I'd like for you to share them too. For anyone that's listening that hasn't done it, what were some of the things that, like, give me like a penny drop moment for you that, like, there were some activities that we did in the room that where you realize, like, it's like an instant activity that you could share right now where people are like, oh, that makes sense. I've never seen it from that perspective.
Yeah, so if you go out on the street and you look for yellow VW Beetles, all you'll see is yellow VW Beetles. So what you look for in the world, you find. And it really stood out to me is like people go out and they look for proof that hypothesis of what they're thinking is true. Example, if I always think my partner is pissed off, what am I going to see when I talk to my partner? I'm going to see that she's pissed off. If I think that my clients don't want my service, what am I going to think when I get on a sales call? My clients don't want my service, therefore I'm not going to pitch. So what you actually are filtering for in the real world comes back to you because that's the reality that you're chasing, which I had no conscious understanding of it. And I kept wondering why I was attracting certain things to my life because that's all I thought about. So your mind doesn't actually comprehend the word don't. So if I think about I don't want to see a yellow elephant or a VW, that's all I'm going to see every single time. What are some things that you took away from your mindset training?
There was one activity in particular, there's actually two activities in particular that helped me. I loved that one. And I also loved the one where Paul gets us to metaphorically write down all of our problems.
Yeah.
And so it's not on a real piece of paper, like you just kind of write them down in the air and you kind of make a list of them. And he says, okay, now take that metaphorical piece of paper and scrunch it up for me. And it's like, you know, just a big ball of air. And he goes, cool, I'm going to walk around now with a bin and it's a metaphorical bin. And he walks around and you put your problems, all your trauma or your stuff or your, you know, issues, and you put them in this bin, and then he puts the bin over in the middle of the room and he says, now come and pick up your problems. And there's nothing there. Like, there's nothing there. Like, it's all made up. Like, everything that we think is a problem is just in our minds. It doesn't actually exist in real life. You know, it's like everything that we see. And on the back of that, the other activity is like they draw a black dot on a piece of paper and they show you the black dot. And then he says, what do you see? You see a black dot. And he turns it around, and obviously on the other side of the paper, there's nothing there. He says, now what do you see? We say nothing. He says, yeah, but I still see a black dot. Because from his perspective, he's seeing the side with the black dot. And from our perspective, we're just seeing the blank piece of paper. And that explained to me perspective. That it showed me that just because what I see or believe to be true doesn't mean that that is what's true to you. And I grew up with a parent who always wanted to be right. My dad was always right. And so I really believed in right or wrong. And that perspective activity helped me to understand that actually, like, there's so many perspectives. Like, Paul was right and I was also right. So both were true.
It's a bit of a trip, and it gets us into a funny one. We always talk about coaching our clients. A lot of our clients think there's a right and a wrong way to do anything. Do you think that's due to a lack of understanding of this principle that we're even talking about? Or do you think they just want, like, the right way to do it so they're not wrong or they're not wasting time? Like, where does that come from? Because we always say to them, there's no right way to do this. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Business has no rules.
There's this concept called spiral dynamics. And in the psychological concept of spiral dynamics, it basically, there are, I think, 7 levels that you can spiral through as you grow conscious awareness. So as you go through the phases of, you know, self-actualization, you move through these 7 different spirals and spiral dynamics. And one of the spirals that almost 90% of the Western population is grown up in is the culture, is the spiral dynamic number 4, which is basically good and bad, right and wrong. There's police, there's law, there's order, there's academia and things like that. And so in that version of existence, which is what the Western world lives in, we are taught from such a young age that there is right and there is wrong, and there is good and there is bad, and there is the correct way and the not correct way. But when you get into entrepreneurship and you become a boss for yourself, your morals have to actually guide that. And it becomes a very insular process rather than an external process. There's no right way to grow a company. Elon Musk went out and created the world's most fucking phenomenal companies because he did the opposite of what was right, or because he did the opposite of what everyone told him. He took all the advice and he was like, fuck that, I'm going to do it my way. And because he went and he did it his way, he's created something that no one else has been able to create in the history of human existence. And so I think that if we tell our clients there's a right way to do something, and then they go and they only follow our way of doing it, we're stopping them from innovating, we're stopping them from being creative, we're stopping them from being the next Elon Musk, and forcing themselves to think for themselves and to find the way that makes sense for them. And that's why we refuse to do right and wrong in our container.
I'm going to tie this mindset piece in a ball. So you did mention spiral dynamics. I'm going to join you on the nerdiness. So the level above 4 is obviously 5. But level 4 is like they have a job. Level 5 is you're an entrepreneur. A lot of people, to get to level 5, they're jumping from level 4 to 5. For you to change any level in your spiral dynamics, you literally have to rewire everything about you. And that's why it feels so hard to go and become an entrepreneur. It feels so hard because all of your family, all of your friends, everyone around you, they're in that level 4 mindset. They're in the safety, they're in the money, they're in the laws, they're in the you shouldn't do that. They're in the you should get a job, you should get a real job. How many entrepreneurs have heard that from their family? I swear my family still says that to me, you should get a real job. I'm like, man, I'm so far beyond that. But there are levels that you have to jump, and it's not just financial levels or money in your bank account. It's like a spiritual level that you have to jump, and you have to accept that to become the next level of yourself, you're going to have to adopt different values or beliefs, which is extremely uncomfortable. Steph, what would you say to anyone who's kind of struggling with their mindset? They're hearing us talk about it. What kind of practical advice would you give them if they want to level up their mindset?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. First and foremost is like, I actually recommend that anyone should go and do NLP. I think everyone should do NLP. I think that if everyone did NLP, the world would just be a better place.
Yeah.
If you guys want NLP recommendations, we've already obviously, of course, told you about Evolve and Relaunch with Paul and Juliet, but there are so many other great providers. My best friend Brianna also does NLP qualifications. So if you want some recommendations, please reach out to us. We would love to give you a recommendation on that. But I think the world would be a better place if we all understood perspective, belief, our own limiting beliefs, our own conscious wiring, our own framing. If we understood the way that the human mind works and then the way that the neural pathways actually drive us to take action in our lives, then you're able to control the actions that you take. And so for anybody that's listening to this, I would highly recommend. I think it's the best investment you'll make for your life, for your business, for your relationships, the best.
We're going to get into the second reason, and it's all about having the right standards. And the reason most people are stuck is because they have low standards. The problem with standards, if you never really know what a high standard is unless you've experienced a high standard. And experiencing a high standard is very hard to come by because very few people actually have high standards. And when you are around someone that has high standards, you fucking know about it and you learn about it really quickly. So I'll tell you guys a quick story. I think it was back in 2013, back in the good old days. After I finished university, I knew I needed to get some experience. I knew I needed to see standards for the first time. I was a personal trainer at the time working in a big box gym, which absolutely sucked. And I knew I wanted to open a gym and work with athletes. And the problem is Perth has nowhere where you can really learn that stuff. So what I did, I applied for 200 positions in America to work in college sports. I was accepted into 3 and I got a job at the University of Arizona. That was great. Flew out to Arizona in peak summer. It was like 48 degrees or something like that. It was super hot. I showed up for work on that day, and I showed up there the day before, and my boss, Jim Crumpos, he said to me, "Here's your uniform, shave your beard, white socks only, they have to be a certain height, your shoes need to be tied in a certain way. When you show up tomorrow morning, it's 4 a.m. I want a bright smile, I want a serious energy." And he outlined exactly what I needed to do, what I needed to wear. And it was a pretty crazy experience, but a formative experience for me because you learn exactly in the setting of strength and conditioning what high performance was.
Talk to me about University of Arizona.
Yeah.
What were they known for? Did they produce good athletes? Talk about that.
Yeah, so I was a coach in the Olympic sport section, but we won the basketball championship and the football championship that year from the Pac-12, which means we were the #1 college in America at that time. So they're a really good college, really big. They've got really high standards, and they produce phenomenal athletes. So I'm talking NCAA champions, Olympic medalists. I'm talking representatives from every country in the world. All of the college athletes, the best of the best, were there. And these athletes were like Ferraris compared to the Holden Commodores I was working with in Australia.
Talk to me about this coach.
Yeah.
What did modeling excellence or high standards look like for him? How did that look on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so Jim was a phenomenal coach and a phenomenal mentor. So just to give you an idea, I got to the gym at 4 a.m. We were in the back room where all the protein shakes were kept. We were making a pot of coffee each. And when I mean a pot of coffee, I mean like 1.5 liters of coffee. And this was straight percolated American jet fuel. So we'd put that in a cup, we would put some ice in it, and then we'd put like 10 sugars in it. Smash that. I can't even tell you how much caffeine was in a pot of coffee, and we were doing that each with all the staff that worked there. We'd rock out, chest held high, storming around the gym, music on, yelling, screaming, pushing people to their absolute potential, getting the best out of our athletes. Like everyone was hitting their numbers, everyone was hitting their reps, everyone was hitting and having the best sessions of their life. But I got to model that. And then I brought that back home eventually when I did move home and opened a gym, but without actually seeing what excellence looked like from a coaching capacity and producing the best athletes in the world, I never would have adopted that.
Marry caffeine and the best coaching together for me because I'm not quite seeing how they match.
So it was prep. So they were prep, they get there 4:30, gym wouldn't open for 5. It was like prep talks, what we were going through in the session, who was doing what, who was coaching what the form should look like, what the tempo should look like, how the energy should be, what athletes had specific injuries that we had to work around. There was so much preparation that went into just conducting a day in the gym that's what I mean by being prepped and being excellent is they were so ready for war and they were so ready to get the most out of their athletes because they were so fucking prepared. And then what would happen after that is he would step in the gym. And this is like, I'm talking the biggest gym you've ever seen in your life. There was like 30 squat racks in there. There was no one in there, 4:30 in the morning. And he'd walk in and he would scream in the top of his lungs, "It's a good day to be alive." I'm talking like top of the lungs, full scream, and then he would march on and get his day done. And I was like, man, that's the fucking energy you need to show up with, dude. Like, and he was commanding, I think there was like 80 or 90 athletes in the gym at any one time. You think about 80 or 90, like type A red-blooded Americans, like it was crazy. Like it was wild.
When we first met, I knew that you had high standards for yourself. And over the course of being married to you, I have noticed that those high standards become the standards of everybody around you as well. And not by way of forcing people or pushing people, but people, and I think humans naturally rise to meet the level of the people that they're around. It's human nature. And so I met you and I had pretty high standards for myself in relationships. Like I was looking for a specific kind of guy. You really matched a lot of the things that were on my wish list for a man, just so you know.
Thank you.
I didn't settle or anything. But ultimately, outside of that, my standards for my life were pretty low. I wasn't training often or regularly. I was drinking a lot of wine back then. I was accepting mediocrity at work and being treated like shit by bosses, and told myself that this is just what life looks like for me. I didn't have high standards for myself outside of my relationships. And so being around you was really eye-opening, the way that you hold yourself accountable to taking daily action, the way that you get up every single morning and you chose to be excited, even though it was 4 o'clock in the morning, and to go and coach your clients in the gym and drive 45 minutes from my house to there. And you chose every day to be the best version of yourself that you could possibly be. You reinvested in yourself, put yourself inside containers. You went to men's events, you did breath work. There's nothing that you haven't done to try and better yourself. And that's been so inspirational for me personally to witness and to want to model. But you're right when you say that so many people don't actually have access to model greatness. And even recently in business, we kind of hit a bit of a roadblock where our income grew to a point that no one around us was doing. Like we had grown it past, we had been around people who had $1 million businesses, but we weren't around many people that had 5, 10, or $20 million businesses. That's because there's not that many of those people out there. In order for us to get there, we kind of realized that we need to see what it looks like. But how the hell are we going to see what it looks like? How are we going to figure out what those businesses are doing that we're not? Unless we quit our business and we go and work for them, we figure it out and then we come back and we build it. Or we get in rooms where we get to meet those people in real life, we get to develop relationships, and we get to ask them questions. And let me tell you that being in those rooms is fucking expensive. We have spent in the last 12 months around $170,000 just for entry to the rooms, and then probably an additional $60,000 actually getting to the rooms, because the rooms are not in convenient locations. They're in Miami, they're in Scotland, they're in Fiji, they're in all sorts of random places that you have to go to be in a room with somebody. But if you're listening to this podcast and you are thinking to yourself, damn, I want a $1 million business, or I want my business to hit $500,000 in the next 12 months, or I want whatever it is that you want, a team, people executing for you, freedom. You need to get around people who are doing that. And, that's one of the reasons why we created Success School. We're a community of people. We just came back from our Bali retreat, and one of my one-to-one clients was like, life-changing. I just needed to be around people who were like that. But there is something so powerful about getting in the room so that you can see what excellence looks like.
Speaking of standards, we've been in the room, we've been in the biggest rooms. Like we've been in the 3 biggest coaching programs in the world, 3 biggest, best, most expensive, all of the things. What are some things you've learned about standards? Like what do they tolerate? What do they not tolerate? Kind of what happens there with their teams? Because a lot of it is leadership. A lot of it is standards. Like what have you noticed about most of them?
They all take an unreasonable amount of action, and they never take no for an answer.
Yeah.
They are so hungry. They are so committed. They are so fiercely committed to the outcome that it's just a matter of time before they get what they want. That's ultimately it. And so being around those people who are willing to do whatever it takes, who will work as many hours as is required, who will reinvest the money even when it's scary, who will put their balls on the line and run the Facebook ads campaign that feels absolutely terrifying, it's incredible to be around people like that. We heard one of the guys who is in the container with us, he's Australian, and he spent like $40,000 on a speaking coach just because he wanted to get slightly better at speaking. You know, not for TED Talks, not for public speaking, not for stage presentations, just so that he could be better for his ads, for his content, for his stuff. And like, these people are just so committed. They're committed to always being the best. That's what I've noticed. What about you?
Yeah. I'm just going to talk to the standards piece. Like any of these high-level operators that I know and we've become friends with by getting in the room with them, what you do notice is everything they do is extremely polished. Like it's very slick. Like the standards are extremely high. Their team is super dialed. They don't have B and C players on their team. It's all filled with A players. They don't accept mediocrity. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they hire a VA and maybe their training's not that good, but the VA's a bit shit and they just accept that just because it is. And the uncomfortable thing is firing them and getting someone better. But I think like the standards piece just across the board, from team, relationships, health, fitness, you know, like that's what I do notice is like a lot of these higher level entrepreneurs, they're super fucking dialed at everything. They're not just dialed at business. They're dialed in their body. They're dialed in their mind. They're dialed in their relationship. They're dialed in all the things. And I think standards is something you learn, and then it really goes over to every aspect of your life.
I remember we had a call with Matt Gray, and we were on a Zoom meeting with him, and he said to us about his content waterfall system. He was kind of guiding us through what that looked like. And he was like, yeah, we produce about 300 pieces of content a week. And at that time, I think I was producing 3 pieces of content, maybe 5 with the podcasts and stuff, but 3 to 5 pieces of content a week. And I sat there and I marveled at this man in front of me thinking, oh my God, how does he do that? And then I really sat with myself and I thought, because he decided to. Because instead of sitting here and saying that's too hard or that's too difficult or I could never do that, he chose to find a way to make that work that didn't require heaps of his time, that didn't require lots of his time. And for me personally, how can I sit there and defend my 3 to 5 posts and expect the same output and expect the same outcome in my company as his if I accept my level of output as being enough? And when you get on calls with people like that, and our clients get on calls with people like us, it forces you to see the standard, and then you have a choice. You have a choice in that moment of, do I choose to rise up and find a way to improve my situation, improve my standards, to at least go from posting 3 pieces of content to 30, you know? Or do I settle and accept that this is the best that I can do? And I think in every situation, every entrepreneur has moments where they're faced with that, where an Alex Hormozy or a Matt Gray or someone comes along and they're doing more than you, and you have a choice to choose whether to rise or fall to the standard of the people around you.
I'll just finish the standard section with a little bit of a story. We've had, I would say, a sticky situation in sales lately, just in our own business. And we've had a few underperformers. And, I had chats with these underperformers and I said, like, hey, guys, here's the standard. And if you don't meet it, there's not a role here for you. And at the end of the week, the numbers weren't there and they had to go. And I think a lot of people would get into this situation. They'd give them another week, another 2 weeks, another 3 weeks, drag it out. But if someone's not meeting the standard, it is your obligation and their obligation that they find somewhere else where they can hit the standard, because they don't have what it takes to hit the standard in the situation that they're in or the role that they're in. And that might sound hard, but that's the standard that we set at our company. Everyone hits their numbers, or they find somewhere else where they can, learn and get better skills and maybe not hit the standard on someone else's time.
Yeah.
And it leads me into the camels, donkeys, and horses story. And actually messages to our team in our Slack chat the other day. But there's 3 types of people, and you can be one of these 3 in every aspect of your life. You can be a donkey. Donkeys, you've got to whip. You've always got to tell them what to do. You've always got to lead them in the right direction. They're pretty lazy naturally. You typically don't want to be a donkey in any area of your life, or you're going to have extremely poor results in that. Then you got a camel, reliable, goes a million miles, doesn't need much, just point in the right direction it goes. And then you've got stallions. Stallions, amazing horses. They run hard, point them in the right direction. They're going to go a million miles an hour and get the result. But every area of your life, you've got relationships, you've got health, you've got business, you've got your body, you've got your mindset. You're one of these three in every area. You're either in the low standards of a donkey, you're in the medium standards of a camel, or you're a stallion. And the people that do the best in any role, any business, they're always trying to become a stallion in whatever it is. This goes for employees, this goes for yourself, this goes for whatever situation you're in. There's always a level that you can push to if you want to. But if you think you're a fucking stallion and you're actually a donkey, it's pretty unhelpful because you've never seen what actual stallions look like in situations.
And I'd say to anybody, one of our mentors, Paul, said this to us. He said, if you're not happy with the results that you have in your life currently in any area, that is a direct reflection of the standards that you hold for yourself and the beliefs that you have. And when I looked at my life, when he said that to me, there were things that I was unhappy with in my life. And I realized that I was holding a low standard to those things. And so I encourage anyone listening, like sometimes you don't know you're at a low standard because, you're not being modeled excellence. That's okay. What I'd encourage you to do is take a bit of a checklist of your life and where are the things that you're unhappy with? And are you allowing yourself to hold a low standard in that area? What could you do to improve it? And then what would that take? And then you will find what the standard needs to look like. You know what you need to do. You just haven't allowed yourself to meet that standard.
Guys, you can't blame anyone else for where you're at in whatever area of your life. No one can do it for you. People that blame other people, let's be honest, it's absolute losers for things, Like like you just said before, the results you're having in your life are a direct reflection of the choices that you've made. And you have to own that and you have to accept that. And the sooner you do own and accept that, the better your life will become.
Really quick, before we touch on, how many tattoos do you have on your body?
7.
7 tattoos.
Yeah.
I want to go through all of them really, really quickly.
Okay.
There's one that's on a very naughty part of your body.
Mm-hmm. On my wiener?
It's not on your wiener, but it's on your butt cheek.
Yeah.
What's that one?
I've got a smiley on my butt cheek.
Okay. What's on your back?
I've got a soccer team, football club Bayern Munich.
Okay. What's on your neck? Neck.
What's on my neck? I've got a number 2 on my neck.
What are they actually?
It means strength in Japanese.
Perfect. So he's got strength in Japanese on his back. What's the one on your forearm say?
It says, be better.
Mm-hmm. And what's the one on your chest say?
Mittelmaßigkeit ist eine Sünde, which means mediocrity is a sin in German.
Tim has literally 3 tattoos on his body so 50% of the tattoos that are on your body are about strength, about being better and meeting the standard, and mediocrity being a sin. So I don't know if you guys have met anyone like Tim in your entire life that cares a lot about holding himself to a high standard, that he inked it on his body.
Be better, guys. Be way better.
And ultimately, we tell you all of this because at the beginning of this episode, you said that business really comes down to 4 things. It's super simple. You make noise, you sell people, you deliver, and then you basically do it all again and you make sure delivery can happen without you. And every time a client works with us, it's the same thing. Oh my God, you guys made it so simple. Because business is ultimately the most simple game of all time. It's the human that overcomplicates it. And honestly, like it's like anything in life. If you had an F1 car that you'd paid, millions and millions of dollars for, and then you put a shit driver in it, you're not gonna win the race because the driver's no good. And I think that represents most people's businesses right now. Some people are sitting on phenomenal businesses. And I say this to our clients all of the time. You've got an amazing business, but the driver might not be where the driver needs to be. The standards are too low. They're not training enough. There's not enough practice. And if the driver's not good, you won't win the race. And so everything in business is incredibly simple. If you work on your mindset and you hold yourself to a higher standard and you put yourself in rooms where you can see what that standard looks like so that you can hold yourself to it, that is when everything is going to unlock for you in your business and in your life.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.